Okay, so I want to say thank you all for taking the time today to come on and learn a little bit more about what it is that we're going to be doing for Kamala. I'm super excited. I will say that I was not, and I think a lot of us felt this way, particularly excited about the election before she came on board as the uh, presumptive Democratic nominee. But ultimately, I do think that this election, besides her, is just actually bigger than who the candidates are. We know that philosophically, there's one party that at least is trying to progress forward and at least trying to ensure that most people get to live the American dream. And then there's another party who only believes that certain folks can live the American dream, and some folks are not worthy of that. So I like to just couch this and give some context and then talk a little bit more about what it is that I'm trying to do and I'm trying to act and why am I doing this work. So I want to be clear. I am not Democrat and I am not Republic. In fact, I don't actually believe in a two-party system at all. I think it does a disservice to the majority of Americans. The truth of the matter is we are a republic and we are not a democracy, but I want us to move forward to get to a true democratic way of being where everyone's vote absolutely counts, where we no longer have the electoral college and everyone's one vote counts as that one vote for any particular candidate. That being said, the reason I'm putting my hat in the ring and really being actionary around this particular campaign is that it is 100% possible if the other person wins, we may not get the chance to vote ever again in this lifetime, in our lifetime. And that is unacceptable to me. My ancestors have been in this country for generations, probably for longer than the majority of people who call themselves American now. My ancestors were slaves. They built this country. They died for this country. And I will not let my ancestors' blood run through this ground in vain without at least acting and trying to ensure that we have the type of government that we hold responsible, that we act for our freedoms. And so, besides talking about it, I am 100% a proponent of acting. So let me talk about why we got to this point and why I've decided that it's going to be Kamala for president and housing for all in particular as the issue that we're going to be focused on. So this sometimes the universe kind of just, I don't know if you guys have had this moment, just kind of knocks you upside the head multiple times and you realize, man, the universe is telling me something. And not only is it telling me something, but I cannot say no. I cannot say no. I just cannot do it. I have to say yes to this. So let me tell you how I got here. 2 weeks ago, I was at the NAACP convention in Las Vegas. It was actually very fluky the way that I ended up going there, but I kind of contacted them on behalf of a client and they were like, why don't you come as media? So automatically I'm like, great, I'm coming as media. I'm really excited about being there, seeing what's going on in Las Vegas, going to the NAACP conventions. The first time I've gone to the convention, even though I have been part of AXO, which as you may or may not know is their youth division. So went to the convention and the keynote speaker, which I found out when I got there, was President Biden. So then I got an email that said, hey, you have press credentials to cover President Biden's speech, and you'll have the opportunity to ask him a couple of questions. And I was, let me tell you, when I tell you I was excited about that, I was really excited about it. But as you may or may not recall, he ended up getting COVID. And so that never actually happened. I never got a chance to actually speak to the president, though I will say that covering his speech was great. I think it was probably one of the best speeches he had done in quite some time. And so I'll talk a little bit about that on my social media. Okay, so I was a little bummed about that, but the campaign reached out to me and said, hey, but would you be interested in talking to Acting Secretary Adrienne Todman? If you don't know who she is, she's a fierce Black woman and she runs the Housing Urban Development Department. And I said, sure, that sounds great. And she also spoke before President Biden did for his keynote. So she and I had 20 minutes to talk about what were some of the housing initiatives that the Biden Harris administration was doing what were they really thinking about? And so I learned a lot about their affordable housing, their grants that they've been sending out, about $50 million to a whole bunch of different cities across the United States. I learned a lot about how they have this initiative to cap um, rent gouging from corporate landlords. And then all of these ways that they're helping people get home ownership. They also won a lawsuit against biased appraisals, and we saw all the biased appraisals that were happening to folks in our community, people who look like everybody else on this call. And so I was like, no one knows this. No one knows all of this information that you just talked about. And the way that they thought about it was so thorough, right? To help people who are renters, to help people who are homeowners, and understanding that homeownership is actually the true path to building generational wealth and to closing that racial wealth gap. Personally, I actually benefited from a governmental program like this. So 20 plus years ago, I bought my first property as a teacher in New Jersey. I bought the property in the district in which I was working as a high school English teacher, and I was able to have the government gave me my down payment. As a result of that, I've been able to now become a real estate investor, and I own properties here in Miami and back home in New Jersey. That has helped me build my generational wealth. I tell people all the time, if I drop dead today, my heirs would be millionaires. And that's mainly because of the investments I was able to put into housing. But I wouldn't have been able to do that if there weren't these government programs. And so I believe wholeheartedly that these government programs need to stay around, that we need to have more education around it so that people can take better advantage of what is going on. And then I'll talk about something that happened really, really recently. So I was talking to a friend and I told them this exact story about me talking to the Secretary of HUD, Adrian Todman. And this person said, you haven't heard from me in a few months because I have been stressed trying to help my mother stave off foreclosure in my childhood home. So this is a home that's been in their family generationally. It's a Black family in South Florida. So we went together to the governmental website because then I said to them, and maybe y'all don't know either, the government provides funding for legal services. So if you're going through eviction, if you're going through foreclosure, you can go to the government and ask them to provide you legal services pro bono. And so that's what we did. And now we've been able to slow down the process, and the family feels like they have hope. That's just one person in this 2 weeks time that we've been able to help. The same thing happened with another friend I was talking to who was going through an eviction. Their friend was going through an eviction process. They thought it was based off of racial bias. And so I had them go through the same process. And now they have legal representation going through this, and they don't have to go out their own money, figure out how they're going to pay for the legal representation for fighting eviction. I just found this out 2 weeks ago. And in those 2 weeks, I've been able to help two people. Imagine if we go across the country, the amount of people that we can help, the amount of people that will actually understand why it's important that they vote in this election. Yeah, we're thinking theoretically, but we can take what's happening theoretically and understand what's actually, how we can take what's theoretical, what's there in the federal government, and bring it down home to you to save your properties, to save your friends' properties, to ensure that you start acquiring properties. So that's the background of, so then I started talking about this on Instagram. And then someone said, you should actually like start a whole campaign tour around this. So I've been in contact with the actual campaign headquarters. I'm also talking to our state senator Chevron, who runs the Democrats for Florida. He's the president. And so we've got a lot of folks who are actually really interested in partnering with us. This call today is really about those of us on the ground, and then I'll continue to keep people updated when we get more and more partnership with the campaign, hoping to get actually funds, because obviously this takes money. But the goal is I did this, we're going to go to 10 different regions. Each region will have about 3 or 4 cities. We are hitting every single battleground and swing state. Plus other states that I think have been really hit by the housing crisis, especially those of us who are Black and brown in these communities. And to do that, which is about 30 to 40 cities, would cost us about $90,000 if that's, if we had to just do it like that. I can do it on a shoestring budget. We can do in kind. There's lots of different ways that we can roll around that. But the return on investment is 20,000 new registered voters who will hopefully vote for Kamala. And then our goal is to get to $200,000 worth of donations going directly to the Kamala for President campaign. So that's the overall arch of like the context of how we're starting off with the Housing for All campaign. I will actually pause to see if there are any questions before I go into more of the nitty gritty, what I'm looking for, how we can partner, et cetera, et cetera. And thank you to those of you guys who just thank you to everyone who has just joined recently. This is being recorded, so I will share the link out to everybody who has been able to join the call, or who has not been able to join the call, so you can share it off with your networks. Okay, so I gave some of the context. I do want to just address a couple of things really quickly. Have you guys heard of Project 2025? Just you can just raise your hand or dodge your head along. Great. And I saw some people say no. So let me just talk really high level. So Project 2025 is a 900-page blueprint written by the Heritage Foundation, a very conservative nonprofit organization. And their blueprint that they have is for the America that they envision. And the America that they envision wouldn't have any sort of governmental oversight. So things like the Department of Education wouldn't exist, Department of Labor, Department of Energy, all those departmental things would no longer exist. State rights would be first and foremost in almost every aspect of life. Obviously, well, maybe not obvious, but part of that is also rolling back women's rights, like really rolling them back. I don't know if you guys know that like women could not get their own bank account until 1974. So they want to go back in time where we couldn't even use our own money. We couldn't even bank. Obviously, we see all the abortion bans that are going on. But it's getting deeper than that, right? They don't even believe in IVF. They don't believe in birth control. I mean, there's a lot of crazy stuff going on. And if you read that manifesto, that is basically why have you been hearing why is Trump saying that in 4 years you'll never have to vote again? Well, that's what they're hoping for. If they do everything, they have patted the courts up and down, not just the Supreme Court, but your federal judges in all these different states are very Republican or very conservative, and they have a full-on agenda to get to an authoritative rule in state. So that's why I said that this one, whether it was Kamala, Biden, I didn't really care. I was going against that guy because that's ultimately, if things go the way they go, this would be our last election, period, where we have an opportunity to even say anything along our voice. Well, anyway, Donald Trump has been trying to say he's not a part of Project 2025, even though there's actually lots of proof that he is a part of it. And but because it's become so controversial, they just fired their executive director. And so now a lot of people believe that Project 2025 will never come into manifestation. Well, I'm here to tell you that that is wrong and erroneous. They've already been putting it they've already been doing parts of Project 2025 for the last several years. You can see it here in our own state of Florida when they did the ban on anything that was around DEI initiatives, and that all had to go out of public funding, right? You can't even use DEI. You can't say anything around DEI. Can't talk about critical race theory. Rehashing of the state standards of education as it relates to history. All of those things. And I'm going to put in the chat, a response that I did on the Black Information Network when that first came out. Florida, we see it happening in Florida, but obviously this is also happening in other states, Texas being another big one, but Ohio's right behind them. We've got things going on in Minnesota. We've got crazy things going on in Michigan. They've already been rolling out Project 2025. So if you see them, the guy, I forget his name, the executive director, he said, we are already winning. They don't even know. So this is what I'm talking about, paying attention. These rules, these laws, this is part of Project 2025. The overturning of Roe v. Wade, that's part of Project 2025. Texas saying that it no longer wants to fund IVF, that's part of Project 2025. And trust and believe that these states are conservative states will be following along. So even though they say they're no longer doing Project 2025, they've been doing it. And now we have a chance. We have to take this chance. This is literally our last chance to stop them. And that's why this work for me feels so urgent. Any questions? And you can, if you just Google Project 2025, no one is asking you to read the whole 900 pages, though it is a trip if you want to. But people have been talking about it on YouTube. It's all over social media. There are cliff notes about it. And I'm specifically thinking just around the educational side of things, getting rid of the Department of Ed, revamping the public schools. Oh, and I should mention, they want to get rid of all public schools. So meaning that educating your child will no longer be free. Which is completely backwards. So thanks, Egosa. So Joy Reid is covering it as well. So just take some looks there, but just so you know, they've already put the foundation for Project 2025 up, and they've already been rolling back our rights, and that is part of Project 2025. So just imagine if the other man gets in, how that's going to just be accelerated. And he believes it'll be so accelerated that we will never have an election process again. Okay, so I'm going to pause there for a second. I'm going to put into the chat my response to Governor DeSantis and our own State Department of Education changing the history standards. And I talked about that on the Black Information Network. And that was, oh boy, how long ago was that? I want to say that was last year. So like I said, they've been doing this work for quite some time. So if you ever want to take a look, so it's on my YouTube channel, what I talked about on Black Information Network. Okay, so I just wanted to stress again the urgency of this work. We have from now until November 5th, that is 97 days, 97 days to get people corralled behind Kamala and to get Kamala to the finish line and make sure that she is the 47th president of the United States. She may not be the most perfect candidate. I hear that. I hear that you might not believe in the Democratic Party. I hear that. But what we don't have time for is to let the other man who doesn't believe in anything that we believe in, who does not center Blackness, who does not center women, who does not center anybody's experience but his own, into the White House. We just cannot allow that to happen. Pause. I'll pause. Any questions, concerns, thoughts?
So I just have a phone. This is Sammy. Thank you for this call. It's still an honor to be involved in elections. So you saying that you said the goal is to get 20,000 registered voters. Now you want to do it in our local area, correct? Like in South Florida, or is it something you doing nationwide?
Yeah, great question. We are going nationwide. I can pull up the doc and sort of go through some of the cities. My goal is we have 10 regions. If we can get 2,000 voters in each region, so Miami would be Miami/Florida. We're also going to be looking at, when we're doing Miami, we're looking at Orlando, Tampa, and Jacksonville to get at least 2,000. I'll be honest, I think that I'm doing very conservative numbers, yes. But I like to under promise and over deliver than doing the the reverse, which is over promise and under deliver. So I think we can easily do 2,000 really right here in Miami. But that's just what I've been talking to as it relates to folks who want to actually sponsor the tour. As I'm talking to Democratic Party in Florida and in other states, as well as when I'm speaking with Kamala's campaign.
Okay, thank you. And follow up. So, as we know, presidential elections is electorates. So, we know the states that's automatically going to be blue. And then we have the swing states. We have, 5 to 7 swing states. And Florida can be considered a swing state. I think Obama did win Florida in 2008. So what is the temperature? Do we believe that we have an opportunity to win Florida? Because like we would be a swing state, and and just like you said, I understand to win Florida, you have to. There's like the 7 to 10 cities, South Florida, Orlando, Jacksonville. So in because I'm in Florida, we're in Florida. Is that going to be our focus for this group? Just want to follow up.
Yeah, great question. For this group, yeah, I mean, I think most of us are here in Florida, so I would say that this will probably be where we're focused here in this group. That being said, there are those of us who are transplants. So if we look at the list, actually, while I'm talking, let me bring up let me bring up the list of the cities we're going to, and I'll put those in the chat. Just give me 1 second here. Kamala for president, here she is. Okay, I'm gonna put the information in the chat now so you can take a look-see at the regions. So and the region numbers really don't mean anything. It's just like kind of how I thought about cities and stuff. So we're gonna have an event next week. So I'm gonna talk about that in a bit. Here in Miami, I should say. But in terms of kicking off the national tour, we're working with the DNC to hopefully do it at the Democratic National Convention in Chicago. And then in part of that region, we have Milwaukee, which is in Wisconsin, which is a swing state. And then we'll go to Nashville. So you'll see like here, so if I go to where I'm thinking about for Martha's Vineyard, Maine, New Hampshire. So Maine and New Hampshire are also considered swing states. Pennsylvania is definitely a battleground state. And in fact, President Harris, sorry, Vice President Harris will be there, if I'm not mistaken, early next week or later this week, where she's going to announce her VP candidate. And then, as I said, I want to do Miami, Orlando, Tampa, and then we're going to do Atlanta. So that's Georgia. We know Georgia is another swing state, which is actually pretty. It has, it helped Biden become president in the 2020 election. I don't know if you saw the rally yesterday with Megan Thee Stallion, Quavo, Stacey Abrams, former Senator Warnock, etc. So I think Georgia is really hungry, but we have 2 places in Georgia, Atlanta and Savannah, which are not far from us to get to. So, and then I've got the Mississippi Delta. Nevada is another sort of swing state, so that's why I've got them. California, I think, is just important. Obviously, we've got Texas. No one thinks of Texas really as a battleground state, but I don't know if you guys listen to Gary Chambers from Louisiana. He's a dope brother, has been in politics for a long time. And so he has this theory about places like Louisiana, Texas, and probably even to a degree Florida, but certainly in Texas, the numbers don't lie. There are more registered Democrats in Texas than there are Republicans. The problem is Democrats don't go out to vote in Texas. And so I would challenge us to believe that I think part of our problem is that we probably have more registered moderate Democrats in a lot of these states, and they've been disillusioned, apathetic, haven't felt like going out to the polls. And I think this new energy that Kamala is bringing will help to those smaller numbers. So, for example, in Georgia, Biden won, I think, by 11,870 votes. In Wisconsin, if we're talking about Hillary Clinton, when she was going against Trump, she lost by 14,000 votes. These are really small numbers when you're thinking about the amount of people that actually live in these states and the amount of people who are registered to vote. So I think our goal is twofold. A, to register new voters, which will probably be more younger folks, that 18 to 35 range. But I also think that getting people who are already registered to actually go and vote. Our voter turnout just in general is pretty abysmal. Part of that, though, I think is by design. If you think about a place like Australia, for example, Australia has like almost 100% voting, 100% of its citizens vote. Well, why? A, because the elections are on Saturday, so most people are not working. And B, if you don't vote, you actually get fined. So, so like you have an additional incentive. Here in the US, we do it during weekdays when people are working. So then, they have to find time to get. And then if you're talking about your national elections versus your state and local elections, none of them take place on the same day. You're like, sometimes I'm voting for something in May, then I'm voting for something again in August, then I'm voting for president in November. I mean, it can be all kinds of different things. If everyone can just make sure you're on mute, I think I'm hearing some background. So, but yeah, so I think it's just those kinds of things. So I think like that the truth of the matter is America ready for a Black president? Well, we've had one. Is America ready for a woman president? Hillary Clinton won the popular vote, period. But because of the small margins in some of these swing states, the electoral college went for the other person. But she won the popular vote. So America is ready for a Black woman president, period. End of story. And has been. So anyway, that's me being optimistic, but I think the numbers also don't lie. So that was a great question, Sammy. Anybody else have any questions before we sort of get into what it is that I am asking for? And let me actually put the link of the form where you all can actually officially sign up one there. Okay, so in the chat, I just put the Google form on there. And actually, I want to just go over some dates, which are not in this Google form, but just so you all know, we're all here in Florida. So you know, we are in the middle, or we will be in the middle of early voting from August 5th to August 20th. The last day to register to vote in the state of Florida, especially for those of you all who are new and transplants here, the last day to register to vote is October 7th in order to vote on November 5th for Kamala. I'm just gonna say it because I want us all to vote for Kamala. And so those are dates that you should just know. So let me talk a little bit about our event that we are doing next Wednesday. So we have just a sort of pre-kickoff event that we're going to do at the Cat's Diner. All that information is actually in this forum here that I just linked you to. But it's going to be at the Cat's Diner from 12 to 3. It is during the day, so if you come during your lunch or whatever, we're going to be doing a whole program on housing. So I'm going to go more in depth on the Biden-Harris Housing Administration initiatives, but then we're going to also have a woman who is very much steeped in all the ways that you can use governmental money here in Miami-Dade County to purchase your first home. And actually, I think it's probably all of South Florida, but certainly Miami-Dade County. And then we're doing that in conjunction with Christine Olivo, who's a sister who is running for State Representative District 107. So District 107 covers Miami Gardens, North Miami, and North Miami Beach. So if you live there, she would potentially be your state rep. So we will have actual buses that day. So from 12 to 3, we're going to do like 3 cycles of the same kind of programming. So we'll just like recycle so people can come in and out. And then if you would like, you can hop on a bus. We take you a mile down the street and you can actually go ahead and do your early voting. Early voting that day on August 7th closes at 4 p.m. So that's why we're doing 12 to 3. And then we'll be taking citizens of North Miami down the street to their voting poll in order to go ahead and early vote. And we also will have the ability to do voter registration signups online that day as well. So that event is quadruple fold. It has 4 goals. First goal is to understand the housing initiatives and just be educated on it. Second is like, how do you actually use this money for yourself if you live here in Miami-Dade County? Third is to go down the street and vote. And if you're not already registered to vote, to make sure that we get you registered. So that's next Wednesday, 12 to 3 at the Cats. And the other thing that I'm excited about is the Cats is a Black-owned restaurant, Haitian-owned, in fact. And so most of the events that I'm trying to do, and this is true in my life in general, I try to support Black. I try to not just talk about it, but be about it. So in a lot of these places, I am looking for Black-owned venues to have our events at. And if they're not Black-owned, then hopefully they're Black-led and or managed. So that's next Wednesday. So if I go to the form, so I guess I'll just share my screen really quickly. This is the link. Okay. So if we just go through this, obviously you just sign up, it'll collect your email, your phone number, and this is how I'll keep in contact with everyone. Donating to the tour, those donations go specifically to Black Women Matter and Thompson Education Consulting for us to do the tour. If you want to donate directly to Kamala for president, I have a link because I donate to Kamala, and I've donated to many different campaigns in my lifetime. So I have a personalized link, so you guys can use that link to donate directly to the campaign if you would like. And then this just asks you if you'll come to the event that I just mentioned. So yes, no. And then here are all the opportunities that we can volunteer. I'm probably missing some stuff. So if there's something that I'm missing, either raise your, unmute yourself and let me know, or pop it in the chat. But volunteer people to help on social media, not meaning like not manage a social media, but to amplify on your own social media logistics. So logistics here in Miami, but if you have contacts at any of the other cities and locales that we're trying to go to, logistics there, that's awesome. To help with voter registration. So we will, obviously, as I said, we'll be doing voter registration next week, Wednesday. We're also doing voter registration during the Building Black Business Tour, August 23rd and August 24th in Davie, Florida. So I need people who are just open to helping to get people registered to vote. Networking communications, that literally just means helping to communicate, sending out emails, and then being open to doing introductions to your network of folks that you think might be interested, either from a financial standpoint or in kind, or they also just want to volunteer, be grassroots on the ground. Obviously, we need fundraising, so anybody who wants to volunteer to help with that. And then in-kind donation. So I mentioned that each region will cost about $9,000 roughly to do some of this work. But in-kind donations, maybe we don't have to pay for a venue space because a venue that's willing to allow us to be there. Maybe we don't have to pay for food and beverage because someone can give us food and beverage for free. Maybe you've got a buddy pass on an airline. Maybe you have a hookup at a rental car company. I don't know. But so some of those costs can be squeezed out if we have in-kind donations in that sense. And so you can look through the list in the chat as to where we're going, what the cities are, if there's anything that makes sense to you. That's it. So this is what I'm asking for. I appreciate you all coming together and really trying to be part of the change that we all want to see. And I hope this was helpful. I'll stop sharing my screen and just answer sort of any other questions, or if you feel like there's a missed opportunity that I'm not thinking about, please let me know.
So I just want to say thank you for putting this together. I, much like you, have never really been fully behind Democrat. I never really related to Republican at all, but I've never fully been behind Democrat. I love that you're putting emphasis on how urgent it is and how much is at stake with this, which I think is a message that we really need people to understand, especially in our community. What can we do here today when we get off this phone immediately to kind of help out and get the ball rolling?
Yeah, great question. So one, please, if you can, fill out the form, and then I'll swing back. But let's get out the word, certainly around the event that's happening next Wednesday. if you do this Google search on Project 25 and something like, wow, like you're like, that's insane, maybe just do like a quick reel on Instagram or a short on TikTok. And then, please ask people to start getting involved for the Housing for All campaign. I'm going to basically be trying to do these kinds of conversations on a weekly basis. Um, just to keep the momentum going, to get the education rolling. I know everyone can't get to every event, but I think the more that we start talking about the housing initiatives and the urgency, like you said, Brittany, behind the work, I think that will be important. Also, you have my number, so feel free to call me if you have some other ideas around what we can do as soon as we get off. I hope that was helpful.
That was very helpful. I'm already writing it all down. When we get off the phone, I got my action plan. So thank you.
So excited. Thanks so much. Anybody else? Well, I hope you guys are as fired up as I am, as committed to making sure that the Orange Man does not get another term in the presidency as I am. I appreciate you all coming on, taking this time. Like I said, we're going to have a weekly cadence of doing this pretty consistently. So we'll do this again next Wednesday, even though we have our event. So I'll probably live stream from the event. So that'll be our weekly meeting. Please sign up on the form. If you want to talk to me about something separate, I think either most of you guys are connected with me on Instagram, so you can DM me there. Or if not, you have my cell phone number. You feel free to contact me. I'm easily reachable. And I want us to come together as a group and do our part to ensure that Kamala becomes number 47. So thank you all so much. If there's no questions, then I'm just going to say thank you. And you can have the rest of your time back. I'll hang out here just for a few minutes if anyone wants to just have some one-on-one time with me.